morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for Jack and Keith Weekend Playbook here on the McGrath Streaming Podcast Project. Look how smooth that came out today. Well done. Welcome, everybody, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. There's our favorite groups, I should say, scrolling at the bottom of the screen, but there's dozens that support this show and all the shows we do here. So thank you for that. I welcome in my co-host, Jack Hirsch, Boxing Hall of Fame writer. A weird comma in there for some reason. Boxing Hall of Fame writer, Jack Hirsch, all-around sports guru. How are you today, Jack?
Hey, good, Keith. A lot to talk about, like usual.
You know, it's funny. When you think there's going to be a little bit of a quiet week, things kind of just explode. Baseball, we'll talk about Sharon Moore a little bit. We got the NFL still, obviously. But we'll start with baseball because the baseball hot stove season, it got off to a bit of a slow start, but it's starting to pick up quickly and not in the Mets' favor, unfortunately. As the big story of the week, two big stories, really. Biggest being Pete Alonso signing a 5-year, $555 million contract with the Baltimore Orioles, which surprised me a little bit, the destination, but good move for the Orioles. Good move for Pete Alonso, bad move for the Mets. They just weren't willing to go that far, is what I got to believe.
Well, the Mets were willing to take Alonso back. It was one of those situations where if Alonso would have accepted a 2-year contract, he would have came back. Steve Cohen would have worked something out. I think it was a case they would have been willing to live with Alonso a year or two more. Surprised he went to the Baltimore Orioles, okay? Because they've never been known to lay out the really big money for free agents. And he did okay for himself, Alonso. 5 years, $155 million to $31 million a year is the highest average annual salary for a first baseman in baseball history. So he got rewarded at the end. If there was one team who I thought would have blinked and would have signed Alonso to that deal, it definitely would have been the Boston Red Sox. What he would have done in Fenway Park, with the green monster, the short fence out there, he would have been an excellent fit for Boston. And again, we see a case of an owner giving his GM all this responsibility when the owner should get involved. The New York Giants were burned. John Mara, when he let Joe Shine, the GM, move on from Saquon Barkley, it was a disaster for the Giants. Because, Keith, I'm going to finish talking about this in a second. There's such thing as legacy players for a franchise. They're not normal players. They're legacies. You want them with you their whole career if possible. And if they're going to leave you, let it be at the tail end of their career when they're past their prime and they just want to go somewhere where they want to play an extra season. And they let Alonso go when he's still in the prime of his career. But do I blame the Mets fully? No. I wouldn't have given him 5 years. I wouldn't have given him 5 years. He's 31 years old. I would have given him a 4-year deal. That's where I would have drawn the line. Would that have gotten it done? It would have gotten it done in season, I think. I really do. 4-year extension in season. Once he got to free agency, I didn't expect him to come back.
Yeah, you're higher on Alonso than I always have been, but I agree with the legacy part. I mean, there are certain players that have different kind of value to you. Again, I'm not comparing him to Aaron Judge, by the way, but they have more value than just what they give you on the field, right? Just showing love to the fans, if you will. They have a meaning to the franchise in a whole. He's a home run leader. Just a lot of things. And before I dive into the Mets issues here, just to touch on Baltimore's side of this, you mentioned they usually don't dive in this way. They've got fairly new ownership, and they've decided they need some veteran bats there to go with some of the young kids that they have. A lot of the kids who have let them down last year. And I think they need some veteran leadership, and I think they think Alonso will provide that along with the bat. The Mets just weren't going to go. They weren't going 5 years ever. They were never going 5 years, no matter what the price tag, I don't think.
Can we say we totally blame them? Fans don't think of the implication of long-term deals. at the end of those deals, you're crawling. You want to get out from under those deals. They're like a disaster a lot of the time. Even the Juan Soto deal, this was the first year for Soto out of a 15-year contract. I repeat, 15-year contract he signed. He had a wonderful year, outstanding. If he can do this for 13, 14 out of the 15 years, super, then he's worth it. But it gets to the point, what happens towards the end of the contract the last few years? It becomes an absolute albatross. We've seen it with a lot of players. We see it with the Yankees with Giancarlo Stanton. He's a big fan favorite. The Yankee fans love Giancarlo Stanton, but that contract was like a bit of an albatross at times, except when he's really at the top of his game and hitting. Then we can put those feelings to the side. But with the Mets, Alonso. But if I'm Alonso, if I'm Pete Alonso, I had to think to myself, I want to be a legacy player. I want to not only break Met records, I want to shatter them, because that would be his ticket maybe into getting into the Hall of Fame, the all-time Met leader in this and that. We talked about Andy Pettitte. He has 254 career victories. Whitey Ford has 236. But Andy Pettitte pitched for Houston for 3 years, so he's not the winningest Yankee pitcher of all time. If Andy Pettitte had all 254 wins as a Yankee, he would be given more consideration to be inducted into the Hall of Fame than he is.
I think he would be in, actually, myself. I think we've talked about that, right? I don't think players think along those lines anymore, right? And I don't know if I can blame them. Teams aren't loyal, so why should the players be loyal? It's hard for me to watch that and watch teams walk or players walk away. While you were talking, I had something I wanted to throw in there about what you're talking about, and it's totally slipped my mind now.
Yeah, well, maybe with Edwin Diaz. But the Edwin Diaz situation, the Mets are being blamed. They could have matched the offer. But when Edwin Diaz took the Dodge off at the end, he didn't even give the Mets a chance to match it at the very end. And sometimes there's more to it than just years and money. And I heard all the reasons from all the commentators why Edwin Diaz didn't come back, this and that. But the one thing that wasn't addressed, the moment they signed Devin Williams, you kind of had the feeling, if you're Edwin Diaz, you don't want someone looking over your shoulder. Now, I'm going to hear certain fans, especially Yankee fans, laugh. Devin Williams is no threat to Edwin Diaz, not the way he pitched. But if you disregard last year, Devin Williams was elite. He's on a par with Edwin Diaz. And David Stearns, the Met GM, he was the Brewer GM when Devin Williams was the closer there, and he was arguably the best closer in baseball at times. And you don't sign a reliever for $17 million a year to be a setup man for Edwin Diaz, even though had Edwin Diaz signed with the Mets, he would have been the primary reliever. But as soon as Edwin Diaz would have run into some trouble, guess what? They would have maybe detoured to Devin Williams, and he didn't want anyone looking over his shoulder. And one more thing, rumor has it that Edwin Diaz was upset that the Mets fired the pitching coach. And if you're really close with the pitching coach, you might say, screw it with this organization. You fire him. I don't want to be with you anymore.
By the way, Devin Williams is a really good pitcher, a great pitcher with great stuff with the Brewers. He was their number one closer for like one season. One season. That's it. I mean, he doesn't have a long track record. I can't just throw out last year, because this was like, this guy's got 8 or 9 years of, 35 plus saves. He doesn't. And he's a really, really good pitcher. But in pressure situations, I don't know what I'm getting with him. And I can't just throw out last year, because I watched him pitch. And how many games I watched him pitch in last year? 67 games. And I think he was 3 different pitchers in those games. I mean, I never what I'm going to get.
Well, the deal that was met, if you're the Yankees, he lost the closer job twice as a Yankee. you weren't going to bring him back as a Yankee unless the
No.
money was going to be reasonable, like $7-8 million a year. The Yankees may have brought him back, sure, of course, and they should under that circumstance. The Mets offered 17 million a year, 51 million for 3 years, but 15 million of that was deferred. So they're really giving him 12 million a year and the remaining 5 million a year for 3 years, and the remaining 5 million a year for 3 years is going to be deferred. So it works out in a sense for both parties. But the Mets also had it in mind they might be losing Edwin Diaz, because when they interviewed Devin Williams, they talked about him being in the closer role if need be.
That wasn't the plan, though. I mean, the plan wasn't to sign Devin Williams to be the closer. He was plan B if they didn't get Diaz. They were still after Diaz. And for Diaz not to give them a chance, he obviously had other issues besides Devin Williams getting signed. As you mentioned, possibly had relationships that he wasn't willing to come back because the Mets broke those relationships up.
And he was with the Mets, 8 years? I mean, that's a long time to want to leave. And there's a school of thought that maybe he wants to win a World Series. You go to the Dodgers, you have, all this elite talent. It's like they're baseball's version of a rock band, the Dodgers coming in.
It could be interesting.
All the big names led by Ohtani.
If we get a new CBA, when we get a new CBA, and there's some kind of real salary cap, it's going to be interesting watching the Dodgers try to get under it. That's for sure. But we'll see about that.
But Edwin, yes, 3 years. 3 years, it's worth it. Look, in free agency, you're always taking a risk on a player. And this is where people go wrong in their thought process, Keith. They never look at the back end of a deal. We see the market right now, Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger's 30 years old now, I believe. Okay? And Cody Bellinger's a free agent. Scott Boras is trying to get a 7-year deal. Do you really think Cody Bellinger's going to be that good at 35, 36? I mean...
You just reminded me of the point that I wanted to make. We've talked about this. We talked about it many, many times with Mac, and when it was the Mac and Jack show, and I was guesting on those shows about these types of contracts. When CC Sabathia signed, when this guy signed, when that guy signed, these teams know. They all know when they sign them to these contracts, and some of them, the Mets, as you said, they may not have had a taste for what they're going to get from Pete Alonso at the end of his contract or whoever it might be. Some teams know that the third year, 38, 39, 40, whatever it is, 37, they're not going to get the same player they get the first 3, 4, 5 years of that contract. They already know they're writing off, or not writing it off, but they know that they're not going to get true value those last couple of years. That's part of the game. You know what you're doing. And if you don't have a taste for it, then you don't get involved.
If you get the value beforehand, extra value, then it's worth it. Look, I didn't like the Francisco Lindor contract because I thought the last few years it was going to turn out terribly for the Mets. And Lindor's he signed for 11 years, basically, $341 million, for 11 years, $31 million a year. He's something like 5 years into that deal, I would think, right, approximately. And I thought the last 4 years or so would be a complete mess, the last 4 or 5 years. But he's going strong right now. And if he could continue, if he could have 3 more good years, and then the last 3 years are really bad, but if he could go into the Hall of Fame as a New York Met, I'll revise my thinking and say it was worth it. He went in as a New York Met, because of what he did as a Met. Off, they win a World Series with him making a contribution. But you got to see what contracts are going to be later. The Aaron Judge contract, okay? I remember Dr. Paul Semending and Mac was saying, sign for the $30 million a year. You say you want to be a Yankee, prove it. That was nonsense. I would have sat Judge down at the time and said this will be an awful mistake because the value is going to go up. You want to know something? He may have shortchanged himself at $40 million a year. That's the ironic part about it. He should have maybe gotten an opt-out. But certainly the $30 million a year. And Brian Cashman should not be allowed to handle these free agent contracts dollar-wise. Because Brian Cashman for all his maneuvering, he always misreads the market dollar-wise. He did it again with Trent Grisham, giving him an option for over $22 million a year to come back. Like, what are you doing?
Who do you want to handle those negotiations? Hal Steinbrenner?
I'm sorry, Brenna. Brian Cashman, it was a fiasco the way he insulted Derek Jeter by going public. Then he tries to turn the public against Aaron Judge with his $213 million 7-year offer, like laying it down on the table. Oh, look what we're offering him, to try to turn the fans against Judge. And he's lost other free agents probably, with that type of attitude.
I'm no Brian Cashman fan, okay, at all. But if he's not negotiating contracts, what do I need him here for? I don't need him here at all. Get rid of him. Because if Hal Steinbrenner's doing it, these guys aren't going to get paid the same way, because Hal wants a budget, basically, and at least he talks about it, and then Cashman never sticks to it. But
you need Cashman to fill in the places, project how good someone's going to be. In the case of Cody Bellinger, the Yankees reportedly want to go 5 years for Bellinger as a free agent, which seems very reasonable to me. Now, if Bellinger wants a 6th year, I don't feel comfortable with it. If I'm Hal Steinbrenner, I talk to Brian Cashman, can we really afford to go 6 years? Do you think he's going to be a good player in 6 years? And Cashman, that's one of Cashman's strengths. Cashman will say, no, that's too much, that's too long. This is where the analytics do help a little at times, figuring things out. And they won't do it. They won't pay for the extra year, throw the money away. But the dollar amount, Hal Steinbrenner could say, okay, I'm going to handle the dollar amount. You could tell me approximately what you think he's worth, but I'm handling it. I'll handle the negotiations, and you could advise me.
Well, I truly believe when it comes to Cody Bellinger, I think his price tag has gone up this week because the Mets now are going to be involved because they need a first baseman. And he's about the only guy who plays first base that's available in free agency that's any good. He's a better outfielder than he is a first baseman in my mind, or more valuable there, but still.
I just want to point out, Keith.
Hold on, let me finish. The Dodgers want to get back involved with a player that they gave up on, and the Cubs are involved. There's teams with a lot of money involved here, and you're not going to get them on the cheap if they're not willing to go deep. And he's an interesting case, by the way. His first years, he had 3 full years where he was awful with the Dodgers. His first, got a weird career. His first 3 years were great. His middle 3 years were just, god awful. He was one of the worst players in baseball. And his last 3 years have been excellent. Again, especially last year, he's one of the better players in baseball, and he brings a lot to the table. And brings a lot to a team because he's not just a really talented player, but his baseball acumen, which we talk about a lot, is, off the charts. But he's a weird case. Like you say, I don't know that I'm getting 6 great years out of Bellinger based on the 9 he's already played. I love the kid.
Yeah, there are a couple of factors involved. Let me just get back to the Judge thing with Hal Steinbrenner. I'll make it short and sweet. Yeah. The deal got closed because Hal Steinbrenner called Aaron Judge up, and he finally closed the deal. If Hal Steinbrenner didn't get involved at the end, there's a possibility Judge would not be a New York Yankee because of the way Brian Cashman was fumbling, that so-called negotiation.
Wow.
In the case of Bellinger with the Mets, consider this factor, Keith. Steve Coniona has $22 billion. If you're a lifelong Met fan, you're a lifelong Yankee fan, I assume, from the beginning, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have $22 billion, you want the Yankees to win bad enough, you might sit down and think, okay, $20 billion, $22 billion, I'm willing to lose up to $2 billion to get a World Series winner, and you're going to up the ante. You're going to outbid anyone else. You can do it. You don't have to be as careful with your finances. If you set a $2 million budget to lose luxury tax contracts, this and that. So Steve Cohen could be a very dangerous man in this if he really, wanted to.
I think that there could be other factors why the Yankees and Mets are struggling right now to bring in maybe major free agents, although the Mets did get Soto last year. I'm not going to get into the whole political climate in New York City, but I think it may play into players' thinking, by the way. I won't dive into that. What I want to focus on with the Mets, though, is when it comes to Alonso and Diaz, they're most important free agents they had out there. From all reports, you say that, as you said, they didn't get a chance to bid on Diaz. There are reports out there that they never made Alonso an offer before he signed because he already knew where they were going to go. Are there other issues with the Mets? Because we've had, you mentioned Lindor, and I think he's a fine player, and I do think he's a leader on this team. But stories have leaked out. We had stories 2 years in a row now about him and McNeil getting into it. We didn't hear about it during the season this year like we did the last time. But him and McNeil getting into it, and it was him and I can't remember who else. There was an outfielder, I think, that and Lindor is involved in both cases. Are there clubhouse issues in New York that we don't even know about?
Yeah, I mean, they keep them in the house. Met manager Carlos Mendoza is, of course, going to say there are no issues. Reportedly, when McNeil won the batting championship, like 3 years back, Lindor promised to buy him a new car. And it took him forever to come through. And with Lindor's money, believe me, I mean, he could afford to buy him a new car. I just bought a new car. Give me a break. I mean, I'm not going to buy you a new car, Keith. I mean, I can't afford to start buying other people new cars. But Lindor could easily have kept his word on that immediately. And, there might be issues there. You know, we hear about Juan Soto, that him and Lindor, they get along, but it's business-like. You know, it's not like this rapport there. And even in Soto's case, you know, you saw Soto when he's on the Yankees, he seemed to be a lot happier than he was with the Mets. But that could change quickly, the clubhouse dynamic. You start winning, having a good time. But the Mets are going to make a splash. They are going to sign Kyle Tucker. I agree with you there.
You think so?
And I could see them giving him a 10-year deal if need be. Tucker's age 29. I could see them, if push comes to shove, going to age 39. But then again, is Steve Cohen listening to his GM, David Stearns? Because David Stearns, to his credit, isn't abusing Steve Cohen's money. He's going to let him know whether this makes sense or not. And a 10-year deal for Kyle Tucker, in reality, isn't a sensible thing.
I think
an 8-year deal, age 29 to 37, okay. You know, you're even slowing down in your mid-30s usually. Yeah. But that you could live with a little easier.
Yeah, I don't. Again, I haven't seen Kyle Tucker play day after day like I have seen some other guys who got some big contracts in recent years. I'm not sure what to expect on a yearly basis going forward. Once these guys turn 30, you don't know. Some guys are old at 32. Some guys look at DJ. We thought DJ. You and I both thought. I know, and I think Mac was on the other side of this. We thought the DJ LeMahieu signing was a brilliant signing by Cashman, and it turned out they didn't get anything out of that because he got old fast. And you don't know what you're going to get from these guys. You just don't.
Well, it wasn't 6 years for DJ. No, that didn't make sense. 15 million a year, 90 million. You thought DJ was going to be like a $20 million ball player. 4 years, 80 million. So then I figured, okay, add 2 years on, an extra 10 million total. It made sense at the time. You're right, and it wasn't good. I didn't like what the Mets did with Brandon Nimmo. They signed him to an 8-year contract for over 162 million, over 20 million a year. And he wasn't a $20 million a year ball player, Brandon Nimmo. He wasn't then. He's not now. He's a nice player to have. Don't misunderstand me, a nice player to have. But once you talk about 20 million, you're talking about a guy who's starting to go into elite territory.
Yeah, I think the Mets are going to miss Brandon Nimmo a lot more than people think. He's a fan favorite. I think he was probably a good influence in that clubhouse. I think he breaks out because the ballparks are totally different in Texas and New York. I think his power is going to take a leap too. And Met fans are going to look back and think, I'm not saying it will be a bad.
Marcus Simeon in the deal. Keep that in mind.
No, I
And
know
it's,
Sammy can play. Bad year last year, and I'm willing to give him a mulligan on that.
I don't know. He's age 35. The
Well,
jury is out. When
he
you're
could.
age 35 and have a bad year, Tommy John once said that when you're young, they look at it as an off year, but when you're an older player, they look at it like you're declining.
Yeah, but when Tommy John was 35, he still had a 25-year-old arm. Remember, don't forget, because of the surgery. So, I love Tommy John. He's one of my favorite players and interesting guy. Anyway, the Mets are between a rock and a hard place. I don't think Tucker signs with either New York team. Quite frankly, I really don't. I see the Dodgers swooping in here again. Quite frankly,
Someone is going to step forward and make him a big offer
without a doubt.
outside of the Yankees and Mets. Someone is going to step forward, and
They're willing
who
to
might
diss
it
the
be?
Dodgers altogether.
It might be the Dodgers again. You know, it might be Toronto. And I don't begrudge the Dodgers. If the Dodgers sign Tucker, I don't want to hear everyone complaining about, oh, they're buying championships. Look, last season the Milwaukee Brewers won more games during the regular season. The Dodgers came literally inches away from not winning the World Series. So I don't want, it's how you play. And the Dodgers might have some problems in that a couple of their leaders, a couple of their future Hall of Famers, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, can easily get into the territory of becoming old and starting to decline. Keep that in mind.
Scooble, the Tigers are giving signals that they're going to trade Scooble.
No, they're not going to. You have to give up a boatload for Scooble. They're not going to trade him. What do the Dodgers have to offer?
I have no idea what's in their farm system. They're going to want young guys and probably a player that can play now and a bunch of young guys.
Anyone who gets Scooble is not going to make a deal for him unless Scooble is willing to sign an extension. He has 1 year left before free agency. Why would you deal him? Look, the Yankees did it with Juan Soto. They gave up some nice pieces to get Soto. It turned out to be worth it because they went to the World Series the one and only year. They had Soto, and they got Trent Grisham, who's starting his third year with the Yankees, and it's been a very productive Yankee. Last year was a very productive Yankee.
He was horrible.
Yeah. And obviously they thought enough of him to give him the qualifying offer. Foolish move. Over 22 million for Trent Grisham. Are you kidding me? You know what I would have done with Trent Grisham? If I wanted him back, I would have offered him a 2-year contract, 25 million total, 12.5 million a year. That would have did it for me. I wouldn't have gone 3 years with Grisham even. He had a super year with all those home runs, but that's more an aberration than anything else.
Yeah, well, he's never done that before. And also his glove is way overrated. He got here, they touted him as, Willie Mays in center field.
I never saw the glove, way looked that good, like they made him out to be. But
it doesn't seem to hustle. I'm just not a big fan. Yeah, the bat came alive 1 year. I have no reason to think he's going to hit 20-plus home runs again when he's only done it once.
I would have brought him back on a 1-year deal if it was 12 million, not 22. That I would have been okay with that.
They will, again, to Jack's point, Scooble's going to have to get an extension before he gets traded for sure. Michael talks about a rumor. He hears about Glasnow going to the Dodgers. I'm taking out an arm problem for the best pitcher in baseball. I don't know if I'm making that deal if I'm the Tigers. I do fully.
Listen, but if the Dodgers sign, trade for Scooble, they have to sign him anyone. You don't want him just 1 year, or it's basically a long-term rental.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I think he gets traded during the season myself. We'll see what happens. But
if you wait till July, the trading deadline, it gets devalued. If you make a deal before the season, you can, maybe pick up some nicer pieces.
The other big story of the week was really Kyle Schwarber. I don't even know about whether he listened to a lot of their teams, just re-upping for a lot of money, 5 years, $150 million with the Phillies. Good fit. I mean, he's played his best baseball in Philadelphia, and I think it's a smart move on both sides. But I'm a little surprised that he didn't spend a little more time shopping himself around.
Well, the problem when you shop yourself, is the office might not be there. And then you're really stuck. That's why Alonso and Scott Boras jumped on the Baltimore Oriole offer. If you didn't take it, it gets withdrawn. What's out there? That's why a number of players signed early in the process because they didn't know whether the money would be there later on. Guys like Bellinger, Tucker are waiting a bit, and that might play out to their advantage. I would think it would, but you can never tell. We've seen situations with players in recent years where the demand wasn't quite there the way they anticipated. A Schwarber means so much to not only the Philly organization, but the city of Philadelphia. And it's a win-win. They gave him 5 years at a high annual, average salary, $30 million a year. And what was he going to do? Try to get an extra year out of the Cincinnati Reds and leave Philadelphia because they're giving him 6 years in Philadelphia, 5. And I guess the Phillies drew the line at 5 years. If the Phillies drew the line at 3 years, there's a good chance Schwarber's gone. If he could have gotten 5 years elsewhere, and the Phillies stay at 3. But the Phillies didn't look at him the way the Mets looked at Alonso. They really valued him.
You know what I think? You talked about Schwarber signing early, Alonso signing quickly. I think Alonso's, two things. I think Alonso, Trevor Story, a couple other guys' situations last offseason where it lingered, right? I think Boros learned a little something from that, and I think some other agents will as well. Plus, the labor, the murkiness of the labor situation. I think these players are going to sign and get themselves in as quickly as they can. I'm a little surprised more signings weren't happening this year. The only big signings were the 3 we talked about, and Robert Suarez going to the Braves. A nice move by the Braves, by the way, getting Robert Suarez, who I think is a really good pitcher.
And a nice move by Atlanta. Maybe they get back in contention. Scott Boras made a nice move by having Pete Alonso, who lives in Tampa, take the 1-hour drive or so from Tampa to Orlando to meet the teams, being as a free agent, basically to sell himself to them, where they would talk to him, interview him, get to like him, and it apparently worked. The Baltimore Oriole organization were impressed. But Michael Kay said something that was interesting when he did it. He said, that's nearly insulting for Pete Alonso to have to do that. Could you imagine Juan Soto driving to the winter meetings, meeting with the teams to talk, to try to sell himself? That would have been crazy to think that. But in the case of Pete Alonso, it worked. It was a good strategy. I'm happy for Pete Alonso. It's a good fit for him. He's going to go to an organization that can win, that he could contribute with. And I think the city of Baltimore is going to really fall in love with Pete Alonso. And when he comes back to Citi Field, unlike other players who've been booed by fans who've showed a lot of foolishness, I think the fans at Citi Field give Pete Alonso a standing ovation. And they're always going to have the warmest feeling towards Pete Alonso. And if they boo Pete Alonso, if I'm a ball player, I throw in the towel. I have zero loyalty to a city if they had the audacity to boo Pete Alonso, but the Met fans won't. They're going to give Pete Alonso the ovations he deserves going forward.
Fair enough. And yes, Michael, we will do an MLB update today at 3 p.m. You can catch us 3 p.m. Eastern. And as we transition out of baseball a little bit, and we'll talk more because there's going to be a lot more news as we go forward here in the coming weeks. Before I transition to anything else, Rick, and I know, Danny, you had another question, which I'll hold for a second. But Rick wants to know if you got the interview at the Garden yesterday. That's
no problem. Teofimo Lopez, I'm real friendly with his father, and he was swamped. I'm not going to stand there and get the same quotes and information that everyone else. I'm going to be speaking with Teofimo Lopez on the phone, over there too. So.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, that was a great picture, Alex. I love that picture. That was well done. And
it had a nice background over there.
Did the red sneakers come with the new car? Was a question I got.
I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't realize those shoes would make such a hit. I mean, listen, maybe it could create an image for me, and I could pick it up and advance my career. Listen, if I had to leave you behind, Keith, I'll look out for you later to throw you a few crumbs. Like a major actor,
I
who's an
appreciate
Academy Award caliber. He gets your small speaking part, later on in one of his movies.
That's
So I'll
awesome.
look out for you.
I'll
And
be happy.
Rick could be an extra standing on the street corner. So I'll look out for you guys.
I see you in the remake of The Wizard of Oz, I think, in those shoes. That's what I
As
can
probably as the Tin Man.
Let's transition real quick before we go to the NFL. I want to talk some college football news, and this news is going to be unfortunately off the field. It broke Wednesday. Sharon Moore, the head coach of Michigan, who'd been, and listen, this got positioned on one of our shows the other night as Michigan conveniently finding a reason to fire Sharon Moore. When you look at the details of all this guy didn't get fired because of a performance on the field. He got fired for his lack of, theoretically, his social graces, his lack of character off the field. The man was having an affair, it appears, with a very young staffer. Something obviously went wrong in that relationship. They investigated him, by the way. This didn't just come out Wednesday. They were investigating him this summer, and he was cleared because they both lied. The staffer lied about there being anything going on, and things went badly in this relationship. And she supposedly came forward with all this information Wednesday, and as soon as she did, the university fired him for cause on the spot, which sent him on a quest to see her. And things spiraled out of control at her apartment. Again, this is all reported but not proven. So let's leave it there. But things transpired there where supposedly she was threatened. He threatened to hurt himself, and the cops came and took him away for her protection and his own protection. And he's been in jail since. So this has turned into an ugly situation, by the way. And the AD at Michigan, they've had some coaching issues. They had some issues with Juwan Howard, the head coach of the basketball team in the last few years. Now Sharon Moore, the whole mess with the Harbaugh situation. I got to believe the AD is going to come under some heat here. But
well, he is coming on the heat. He is coming on the heat right now. Yeah. When you mentioned off the field issues, I was going to ask you point blank the question, was Michigan justified in firing him? And the answer is yes. I mean, when it gets to that point where you're threatening someone and the police have to arrest you and keep you in jail, for a day or two, I mean, how can you have this guy leading your university? If it was one interaction where the person made a mistake, shoved someone, for example, I don't condone that in the slightest. I can understand. Maybe there's a suspension, there's disciplinary action. Maybe you can keep the person, in the job on board still. But in a case like this, how can you? Keith, it happens again. I hate to see people ruin their lives.
Yeah.
They're given the job of a lifetime. Like we talked about this with Mark Sanchez. You're given a nice job, a nice position, and you ruin it. And you got nothing going forward, because when you try to get some type of job going forward, they look and see what's in your past, and a lot of times it works against you. And more, I mean, what he did and emotion and this, I'm going to say it in the politest way possible. He was highly irresponsible. That's the politest way I could put it.
For sure. I mean, he's married with 3 young kids. This is not the type of behavior that a man with the right kind of character should be displaying in any situation. And he kicked away, as you said, his future. He got fired for cause. There's no buyout. You're not getting any money from the university. To Rick's question, my guess is if you're thinking they're going to let her keep her job, Rick, I think you're crazy, because she lied all summer long about this as well. So the university, if they haven't already, she's going to lose her job as well.
Well, what did he do originally? Let's look what went on immediately in the beginning. If he had an affair with her, that's against school rules, staffers, so on. Would that in itself have gotten him fired had he not lied and went forward and came forward in the beginning? He may have gotten fired.
He would have.
Yeah.
He would have this summer. If they had found evidence then, he would have been fired for sure.
But why have the affair if you know it's going to get you fired? I mean, that's the thing. But you have such a great job. You're the head coach of Michigan. You got this career, this great job. Why do something like that?
Again, I think what happened, I'm sure that Sharon Moore, before this incident, I think, everything I heard about him was he was a man of strong character. That's why the Mets, that's funny. That's why the Wolverines program wanted him leading this team, because he had good character and the players loved him. I think power, absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
No, the ironic part is,
why did Bobby Petrino do it in Arkansas? Why is he riding around with a staffer on his motorcycle when he cracks it up? He doesn't need to be fooling around with grad assistants. I mean, it's sad.
Listen, the temptations are there, unfortunately. They're older men, they're head coaches. They see these good-looking young girls. They got all this money. They can wine and dine them, and the girls enjoy being with them. But you're crossing a line. You're crossing a line.
You're jumping.
I mean, and there's no reason not to know that. Listen, I was a high school teacher, phys ed teacher, career. You don't think, when I was young at that time, there were girls who were high school seniors. But I knew what the line was. There was no way they're getting anywhere near me. They're not going to come and joke around, with me in this way, that way. You keep your distance by far. And these guys, I mean, they don't get it. The thing about it, an NBA coach or NFL coach, you might be able to survive this on a professional basis. They see there's a bit of a scandal. Maybe you could come back. Look, wasn't the coach of the Celtics, who's now the head coach of the Houston Rockets, Coach Udoka?
Yeah.
Okay. He had a scandal. The Celtics moved on from him. He laid off a year or two, and the Houston Rockets hired him. I mean, we see certain commentators, they have these scandals going on, and they could come back from it, But in this case, wow, Sharon Moore, what a mess.
He doesn't have the track record to really bounce back from this. I mean, he'll get a job somewhere coaching on a staff, maybe not in a Power Four conference, but he's ruined.
We joke around about Bill Belichick, but the difference is
he's not married.
Hudson she doesn't attend the university.
No, and he's not a married man.
And hypothetically, if a coach had an affair with a girl that was of legal age but very young, who didn't attend the university, that's not a fireable cause per se. Okay, but Michigan had no choice but to move on from him at this point, and it's a mess, to ruin your reputation like that. And imagine what the players are thinking. What does this do for the transfer portal with Michigan?
I was just going to mention, besides the mess it is of this poor guy's, poor guy. I mean, we are all fallible. I agree with Michael 100%. We're all fallible. We make mistakes. Some make bigger ones than others.
Yeah.
This affects the Michigan program, and it's going to affect somebody else's program too, because now I guarantee you that the Hawks are out there sniping, looking for Bryce Underwood and some of these other young Wolverine stars. I'd be shocked right now if Bryce Underwood was on this Michigan team. The portal opens in less than a month.
I got to ask you an interesting question. You'd have a much better read on it than I would. Has any Michigan players gone to Ohio State in the transfer portal?
None of.
That would be a major story. The better Michigan players go to Ohio State. Oh man.
Well, Bryce Underwood won't go there because they already have a quarterback. But I'd be shocked if Bryce Underwood doesn't move. And by the way, it's going to affect another team because guess what? We already had the early commitment date of December 3rd. They're going to get a coach because I think a guy like Jed Finch from Washington is probably perfect for this job. They're going to get a coach, most likely, unless they go outside the box for a coach in the pros or whatever. They're going to get a coach who's with an existing program now, and now that whole program's thrown into disarray because those kids will now hit the portal before they ever see the school, and the kids who are on the roster. So this is going to affect 2 schools at a minimum because you're going to have a chain effect where we take that coach's place. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with the coach. They can't wait long. I would expect to see a new coach in place there. This is very similar to the Nick Saban situation last year. It happened in January, right? I think, so it's a little bit earlier. But they can't wait long because we're already past the early commit for recruits, and we're quickly approaching the transfer portal date. So they're going to have to make a move here in the next couple of weeks. I think there's a new coach here before Christmas.
Well, I don't know if anyone on their staff who they would look at as an heir apparent. If there's not, they obviously are going to go outside the Michigan staff. And maybe they take someone who's pretty established, like a Brian DeBall. There's some talk about him maybe going to college.
They'd have a hard time selling Brian DeBall in Ann Arbor.
Wait. At this point, they won't have a hard time selling anyone with everything going on with their school scandal, the coaching carousel. I think the Michigan fans just want to plug in the job now.
Jed Fish was an assistant at Michigan before. He was also the quarterback coach for the Patriots when Tom Brady was there. So he's got some.
What about a guy like Greg Schiavone, from Rutgers, going to a bigger program, Michigan?
He washed out. Well, he went to the pros a while.
Experience NFL, years at Rutgers.
Maybe. I think they want a bigger name. I don't think that they're going to hire a guy who's been around forever. Failed.
Yeah, but you see, you're thinking Michigan's got to make a splash.
They do.
I'm thinking they just got to fill in with someone competent.
Well, if they do that, then maybe they go with. I'm trying to forget a guy's name who's the interim, who's he was a great high school coach. He's been an assistant for a long time now with Michigan, and I'm not coming up with his name off the top of my head.
Great question. Has there ever been a case where a coach went to a well-known Division I school straight from high school, hiring straight from high school? He wasn't an assistant anywhere else in college.
He became a head coach, yeah.
Head coach.
Yeah. Notre Dame, and he just passed away last year. Jerry Faust.
Oh, okay.
Was one of the greatest high school coaches of all time at Moeller High. Got the Notre Dame job and was just absolutely atrocious at it. It was a horrible fit, and he was a great guy. Just passed away. This is the guy that I was thinking of. Thank you, Michael, for helping me out. Buff Apagi. He filled in when Sharon Moore was suspended previously. Bob Cousy?
Bob, well, you're talking about Bob. Bob Cousy did coach, yeah.
I think did. He's talking.
No. Bob Cousy did coach, I think, at Colgate.
I don't
after he retired, and then he became a coach of the Cincinnati Royals in the NBA.
Yeah. I'm going to guess, maybe I'm wrong. Danny often talks his comments, and it could be.
I think it was Colgate with Cousy. Yeah.
We'll see about him. So Jerry Faust is really the big, the poster boy for that. Gus Malzone almost. He was a great high school coach in Arkansas, and he actually almost he didn't quite become the head coach right away, but he used that as a springboard. He went with Mitch Mustang, if you remember the name. He was a big quarterback recruit. This is a long time ago. There's a great documentary out there about that whole situation. If you want to check it out sometime, if you want to see some of the underbelly of college football recruiting, it's interesting to see. This situation certainly warrants watching here the next few weeks. So maybe Danny does mean Bob Cousy. I don't know, but you could clarify that, Danny. Let's move on to the NFL. Oh, hang on one second. One more comment here. I thought it was Biff. Anyway, he's going to be the interim coach. We'll see what happens. Maybe they turn to him. He's an older guy. He's not young. He's like 67 years old. So he's not probably somebody they're going to sign for a long term. Maybe as a bridge till they find another quarterback, it's possible they stay in the house. As you try to keep recruits and players to stay there. Anyway, switching to the NFL, And I will actually, before we talk about anything, let me go back real quick. And Danny wanted to know if he missed your Super Bowl pick.
I'm going to tell you, it's looking terribly now. You know, it's inexcusable if you're the Buccaneers. You lose at home to the Saints and the Falcons. I mean, what the heck? Terrible. But they still have 3 games left. If they win their 2 games against the Panthers, they're exactly in the position I felt they'd go in going into the playoffs. The way the Buccaneers are now, I mean, they're atrocious. I can't defend them, and I can't say I think they're going to do this or that. Like, what the heck is going on at Tampa Bay?
This team
even Todd Bowles went off a 14-point lead against the Falcons, and you blow that game. You lose the week before to the Saints. The week before that, you barely get by the Arizona Cardinals. You're 1-6 in the last 7 games. I know when they lost 3 in a row, they had injuries. They were going against good teams. They were going to reset. They didn't reset. And let's see. The only positive thing is they can still wake up. If they win their 2 games against the Panthers, they're going to be in the playoffs. But they're dreadful right now, absolutely dreadful. I can't make any excuses for them. Not after last night.
They have negative momentum is what they have.
Baker Mayfield. Will the real Baker Mayfield show up? Is he the MVP candidate early in the year? Or is he the Baker Mayfield who would be erratic at times early in his career? Which Baker Mayfield is going to show up the rest of the way?
This guy was an MVP candidate, 6 weeks ago, but now, and that's when the team was hurt. They were missing half their stars. As they've gotten healthier, they've gotten worse. Bucky Irvin comes back. Evans was out and came back. Goodwin was out and came back. And now with those guys all in the lineup, this team looks like it can't get out of its own way. And they're fortunate with a scheduling quirk. We talked about it before the show. In a scheduling quirk, they've got Carolina twice in 4 weeks. So that's where the division is.
Carolina won't be easy to beat twice.
No, well, not.
Okay. The point is, it's easy to say, well, they still have their fate in their own hands. Okay, the Buccaneers. But with that said, you got to beat Carolina twice. And the way the Bucs are playing, I mean, they can't even beat New Orleans or the Atlanta Falcons, who the Panthers are better than.
They might not win against the Jets right now. How are they going to beat the Panthers? I mean, again, hopefully they step up. And by the way, I'll eat some crow because a few weeks ago I was all over the Falcons for quitting on their coach, and they played pretty good football the last few weeks. So I'll eat my words there.
Well, I don't know. Wait. They haven't played pretty good football. They lost to the Jets. Even give me a break. Recently, they're not playing good. I mean, They played well yesterday, the way they came back, a couple of touchdowns down, to win the game. So credit the Falcons for their effort last night.
Well, I guess
it's been a tremendously disappointing year for the Falcons.
Very disappointing. The coach is still getting fired, but I really got on the players for laying down. Maybe not quitting on the coach, but laying down and not playing hard because there's a lot of talent there. And at that same week, I said that they beat the Saints, which isn't a lot. They did play the Jets tough. And now they've beaten the Bucs. They did get blown out by the Seahawks in between all those, but
the Buccaneers' next game is at Carolina. I'm assuming, and you can't assume anything in the NFL, that the Panthers are going to beat the Saints and they're going to be 1 game ahead of the Buccaneers. But then the Buccaneers play at Carolina next week. Okay. And if the Panthers beat them there, the Panthers up by 2 games. That means the Panthers are going to win the division. But if the Buccaneers beat the Panthers in their next game, they'll technically be in first place after that game. And their last game of the season would be at home against the Panthers. So, things could change. But like I said, the way the Buccaneers are playing now, it's absolutely dreadful. They're beating no one the way they're playing now.
The way their defense was just atrocious. Cousins had a huge game, which he's had the last couple times against Tampa Bay that he's played against them. Kyle Pitts has the game we've all been waiting for Kyle Pitts to have for 3 years. So I don't know if that's a defensive issue or the Atlanta offense was just that good yesterday. Bijan Robinson has a big game. They give up over 5 yards a carry rushing. This was just a bad defensive performance, bad performance all the way around, and also the last drive that Tampa Bay had before Atlanta got the ball back when they were leading by 2. They get one more first down. That game's probably over, and they throw the ball second and third down. They got one first down. Then they end up throwing the ball second and third down, and you run no clock. They ran no clock when it got to around the 2-minute mark. They ran no time off the clock. You've got to find a way to run plays. You can throw the football, but you've got to throw passes that get completed and keep guys on the field of play, and they didn't do that. So that's another example of bad clock management, which we've seen a lot of. There ain't even no legacy players on where. There are no legacy players in the NFL, are there? Assuming anything in the NFL is akin to believing Jennifer Aniston says yes to your date.
Well, she's married to Stallone, so why would anyone ask out?
Who's she married to?
Sylvester Stallone, right?
Jennifer Aniston's not married to Sylvester Stallone.
Well, who's he married to? You sure?
Yeah, she was married to Brad Pitt. I don't know who she's married to now. Hold on, I got to find out. You sent the show spiraling out of control because I have to know who Jennifer Aniston is married to. There was rumors about her and Barack Obama, by the way, hooking up here a few months ago. You got to read 6.
Obama's too smart to throw away his reputation and, scandal.
She's currently not married. She's been married twice, once to Brad Pitt and once to Justin Theroux, who I have no idea who that is. So anyway, not married to Sylvester Stallone. Sorry.
My bad. My apologies.
Sorry, Sly. You really should be. Jennifer, I don't know who Jennifer Flavin is.
Jennifer. Okay.
Do we know Jennifer Flavin? I don't know. Oh, maybe that's who. That's who Stallone's married to. Okay. Great show, by the way. If you haven't watched Tulsa King, you got to watch Tulsa King. Great show. Sylvester Stallone stars in that. Games this weekend, Jack, real quick. There's some really marquee matchups, I think. Again, a lot of important games because of playoff implications, but you got Bills, Pats. You got Lions and Rams. You got Packers and what did I write down there? Packers and Broncos. Colts and Seahawks. Even the Dolphins and Steelers now has a little bit of juice to it. This is going to be a fun Sunday.
You can't help but have meaningful games at this point. Yeah, no matter how it plays out. Is there any path for the Buffalo Bills to still win the division and not overtake New England?
Oh, absolutely. If New England falls on their face, first they got to win Sunday. If they win Sunday,
if they win Sunday, where does it leave us?
They're still a game behind. Let me just double check that.
How would a tiebreaker work?
Well, assuming they split, then it would be division record, which I'm going to try to find you right now.
Buffalo did lose to Miami.
They did. Division record right now, the Patriots are 3-0. The Bills have 2 losses in the division, which is not a good sign.
Yeah. Well, but if Buffalo beats New England would have 1 loss in the division.
Correct.
And
They'd be a game behind in both the tiebreaker and the actual division. So, big game in Foxborough, and I like the Patriots. Prove that, and the Patriots have something to prove too, because there's a lot of naysayers saying they're not champions, but they're paper lions, let's say, because of the schedule and whatnot. They don't get to make up their own schedule, right? This isn't the NCAA where you pick the non-conference teams you want to play. That isn't the way it works. You play who you play. They've gone to Buffalo. They've gone to Tampa Bay, which doesn't look as good right now. They beat a good Carolina team by 30-some points. They played, and the teams that they played that they were eyeball to eyeball with last year, they've been beating like 20 points or better. Their point differential is like 3rd in the league. So they're beating teams up. They're not just winning games.
I don't think New England's looking at it like winning the division and finishing Buffalo off necessarily. I think they're thinking in terms of getting the bye. The bye in the playoffs. They're competing with Denver right now for that. I think that would be on their mind a little more.
Yeah, I think it is as well, because I think that home field advantage would be important.
One less game in your advance. If you automatically win, it's like you win a game automatically without playing it. And then you're at home the rest of the playoffs.
And I do think the more important for Denver, because I think Denver's a really tough place to go play. They can get ready to play. And Rick, by the way, yes, great. I forgot all about Army. I forgot about it for this show. Army Navy tomorrow in their standalone game, which who knows how many more years this will last, where they get this whole weekend to themselves. I'm going to pick Army in this game, and the most underrated coach in the country, and Jeff Monken. They can pick Jack. We'll just pick this one straight up.
Oh, I mean, Navy should win this game.
All right.
Yeah, I mean decisively, I would think.
Navy's got the better record on paper. On paper doesn't mean anything in this game, though. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love the Army Navy game.
Just very quickly, does this mean as much to Army and Navy as it would mean to Ohio State and Michigan to win? Yep. Is it as intense?
Yep. I would refer you to the book. John Feinstein, who I'm sure you're familiar with, great writer, wrote a book called A Civil War, which is a tremendous book, and it follows these two teams throughout their season leading up to the Army-Navy game. Tremendous book, and it tells you all you need to know about this rivalry. It's really good. So, any boxing news you want to fill us in on besides your interview, Jack?
No, I was at a press conference last Wednesday to announce the Teofimo Lopez Shakur Stevenson fight. It's going to be at Madison Square Garden January 31st, which is great because the Garden historically has been known to have, the biggest fights, even though it hasn't necessarily played out that way the last few decades. And the following week, we have Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, which is kind of intriguing. People are wondering whether it's on the level, how hard Joshua's going to try. Can Paul compete a little bit? Because Joshua is considered to be miles above him.
Is this, where's that? Is that a Netflix fight again? Or?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. They're fighting in Miami Beach.
Is it going to take me 4 hours to watch a 50-round fight like it did the last time?
No, it's supposed to come on about 10:30. There'll be a little bit of an undercard, and yeah, you don't complain. If it's on Netflix, at least it's not on pay-per-view. And we'll see, Jake Paul might be able to be semi-competitive. He's not going to win. He's not going to win the fight, but he might actually be semi-competitive, meaning he won't get blown out.
Now, when I said the 4 hours to watch a fight, because they had all kinds of technical issues. They crashed Netflix, basically, is what they did. I'm sure they've straightened that out since, I hope. So. Well,
we hope.
Anyway, tomorrow morning you can catch Jack on the debate show with James and Brian. Great show last week. I tuned in for a little bit. You guys did a great job, and you always do. So tune in for that, guys, on the McGrath Streaming Podcast Project. Look at how smooth I'm getting with that. It's awesome.
McGrath Streaming.
You'll get there.
Why do we put in the word project?
Well, that's to give us some class, I think. That's we got some class here. And we got a new little logo. Brian did a great job with a little logo of Mac's silhouette. It's kind of cool. And I hope to get it so that we can share it on our shows here. So, guys, and you catch me Sunday on the Stream of Consciousness, guys. Have a great weekend. Jack, great show. We'll see you on Monday. Or Sunday. Bye.